Hi, MasterFrame allows you to create very complex structural frames. This video is going to look at how you can view and manipulate the views on those frames to make your life a lot easier. The first protocol is the home button takes you out to this full view. So if I go home, it takes me to an isometric view, straightforward. We then have the cube, and the cube allows us to go front, and if you click on the corner top, you can go around the corner sides, and likewise, or you can go back out and you can come and say back to home. The next facility you have is the ability to zoom in and out using your mouse, and the nice thing about this is wherever I have the cursor is the center. So if I pick that corner and I wheel my mouse, it zooms in on that point, and that gives me some lovely control over my frame. We can rotate our frame by holding down the shift and then moving the mouse, the middle mouse button, up and down, left and right. We can also just hold the mouse button without any keys and drag the frame about as well to pan, so we can rotate, pan and zoom on our frames very simply. But we don't always want to see the whole frame, and our next tool would be to cut out part of the frame, and we can do that using this filter tool. The filter really is as it says, a cropping tool. So if I put it in plan, I can say filter, and I just want to see that. So that's a dragging technique. Click, drag and release. Very straightforward, very easy. Now back out, we can see my frame. If I clicked home, it automatically always goes back out to the full frame. So just be careful of using the home. It's very powerful, very quick, but you can get out of go too far out. So you can, for example, if I was wanting to do the first floor here in this area, I would first of all say, right, let's put it in top view. There we go, and it's this area here. So I would come along and I would just move the mouse to the bottom of that and filter. And now I would push it into, say, front view, and now I can zoom in on this level. So like a cake, you're cutting it in at different orientations to divide it up. So again, and I can come down and stay below the bracing, and I will only take that level out, and then I can just move up quickly to plan view, at which point I can say, well, actually I don't need this bit, and I can do a third filter thus. And those are the filtering and viewing tools. Very straightforward. You now have frame views, and you'll notice that by default we have all the primary views set up for you. And it's also going to make an attempt at what are the primary levels, but it's got an awful lot of levels in here because it's just seeing every single node point on the vertical plane as another level, and that's not really what we want to do. We can give this so much more control if we go back a stage and think about creating levels. So it's done all those, and I'm going to kill them all because I don't really want them all. And I'm going to add in level 1, going to call it ground. And it's Y0. Level 2, I'm going to call it mezzanine, or mez for short, and its coordinate is going to be with a Y coordinate of 5.35. 5.35. Then looking at it in front view, you might want to do another view that is up at this eaves level. So I can do another level that's up here and above. So I'm going to go eaves, and it's going to be, and just ask for the y coordinate 7.55. 7.55. And then for the roof, it's going to be from this point up. So what is the upper roof y coordinate? 10.83. I'm going to add in, I'm going to call this one roof, and it's going to be a y value of 10.83. So what's that done? Just close all that down, take off our y coordinates back home, and if I look at my views, I only have a few views now. If I go to edit and I go and delete them all, and then automatic generation of views, and say OK. Now what I see is I've got roof, I've got floor, planet level 1, so that first floor mezzanine level, and level 2 is that eaves level, and then the roof plan is that level up there. So I've now got fewer views. But I can go one stage more than that, and that is if I start to introduce grid lines. Grid lines give us great control. So I'm going to add in some grid lines, and I'm going to add in some x-axis grid lines, so just put it in plan, and I am going to say I'm going to draw grid lines orthogonal. So these are going to be the x-axis ones, and I'm going to say 1, 2, doesn't matter where we take here, 3, 4, 5, and I can continue on very quickly, 6, 7, 8, 9, and in this case I might just do 10 and 11, and have a quick look and put another one in there. Doesn't matter, they're not in order in this case. So turn off the draw, go for the next set in the z-axis, and I'm going to go for draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So having created those grid lines, we now have augmented our viewing tools, because what we now have is all the grid lines. So I can say, let's see grid line A, and there you go, there is grid line A for us. Very straightforward. Grid line B, that makes more sense, and we can see a lovely view through the frame of our grid lines. So we can control the information a lot better there. Now, the next problem we have is if I want to view something, say here. I wanted to look at this sloping roof. So first thing I'd do is put it into a perpendicular orthogonal view. And I can come along and sort of go from there to there. And I've got that view. And I've got some additional members in that are not that relevant to what I'm after. But there we go, there's my view. What I can do instead is under the views, go to edit views, and I can create another view, and I can call it add, that's better, view, and I'm going to call it lean-to roof, and it's going to be from J to M. J to M. And now I define it, and I just define it by using my mouse, and it's probably easier to work with in wireframe so you can see where things are. And I can just want to just be below there and up to there. You might want to just take those as well at the moment. I'll just take those as well. So that's it defined, and it'll be showing in the 3D view. And I say OK. So I now have created, fingers crossed, lean to roof JM, and we'll see that set out. Now obviously that's got additional members there, and I can just turn off the grid lines in this case. There it is, resumed. And that's got additional members I may not want to see. So one of the other tricks we can do is we can view by members. We can say, for example, apply something called a view filter. And I can say member viewing groups. And I've already created a group called lean to. So nothing really happens until I go check. So now only the members in the lean to itself are going to be displayed, and that can be very useful. Now we can also set that up. Now we've got it in the right orientation, or maybe that orientation, whatever you want. We could set that up as a snapshot. So I can just say snapshot, and it's called lean JM, as in lean to J to M, and save. So that will always come back into that view, and that's also a very tool. We will look at snapshots in detail in a different video, but they can be very useful. And what I did was I went into viewing, and I went into member viewing groups. So let's go back out to the full frame, and it's the full frame of this snapshot. So I'm going to go no, full frame. So I've got that filter still turned on. So yes, I need to turn the filter off. I apologize. So there's my frame. So if I wanted to do the same over here, we could call that lean to 1. And I could create a snapshot, I could create a filter, so add a filter called lean to 1. Put a hyphen, make it a single O. And now I can come in and I can just add in all the members that I want to be included in that view. So it's going to be the lean to roof. So just zoom in, grab your bracing, take your bracing, your intermediate members, I think there's a wee stabilizing member in there somewhere from something. That's not the right member there. And come along, and then the bracing members. So that should, in top view, then be enough to give you that. So that's all those members. So at any stage I can come along in the viewing tools, looking at the whole frame, and I can say view filters. I want to look at member viewing groups. I want to see lean to 1 and show it. So only lean to 1 is now displayed, and I missed a rafter out of that group. We can also do the opposite. We can actually say hide everything but that. So we can use that to isolate ancillary members that you want to hide from certain views. So that's again another handy tool in that. And I could go back and edit that lean to view group. So member viewing groups, group 2, which is called lean to 1, and in apply add, I'm going to add in the rafter, and there we go. So that would do that. So that's another useful tool in your viewing. There are some more useful tools you can use, and those are to do with these filters. So I can say orientation. So show me only vertical members. And again, you need to turn it on. And there I go, only my vertical members. And I can say, and horizontal, so vertical and horizontal. With the horizontal, we could say in one direction, east-west, or north-south. So we have those, and we can say inclined. So all our bracing members plus our little inclined rafters. So that's useful. Materials, that can be quite useful because my frame in 3D has a couple of timber members interlacing for this little walkway, lightweight roof, and little stabilizing members. Maybe CHSs should have been better in there, but just being lazy. And I can come along and I can say, sorry, view filters, materials, and I can say only show me steel, so the timber goes out. But something else went out, and that was in fact what we call the bracing members. So I can say multi-select, and I can say steel and bracing, so I don't get my timber members. So very, very useful. On that, we can filter different material properties. And then obviously getting even fancier, we could say, well, where's all the 457s, or where's all the 203s, 133s, and I can say show you those, and we can see where those all are. And we can use it also in a very fancy way, in that we can use it for labeling only. So we've said we only want 203, 133 UB25s, but we'll also say now I want to label their section sizes. So only those members get labeled and everything else doesn't, which can be also again very, very useful. And not only will that work for the section size, it would work in bending moments, it would work in shear forces, it would work in the lengths of the members. So if I said I'm actually after the lengths, I could see the lengths of those individual members that were all that group. So we can do that, and we can use that filter, not just the labeling filter with sections. We could say, let's look at orientation, and I want to only label inclined members. And if I go give me section sizes, and I didn't turn something on, well, yes, a lot of these are inclined. Those are inclined. So yes, they're all there. But maybe inclined wasn't the right option I wanted. Maybe it was materials, bracing, and label. And now that's what I was after, only the bracing members labeled. So you can do a drawing labeling up all of those bracing members for your reference. So you can actually create 2 or 3 different groups there to label the frame, a complex frame, in bits and pieces. Or it could be that you're wanting to show the frame with the axial loads on all of the members, but only the bracing members. So if they're highlighted in a group, you can do so. So it's another one of those brilliant little viewing groups and filters. Design groups we will not work at the moment, and nodal groups aren't that important at the moment. So that's your viewing filters, and that's your frame views. Now, you also have the ability to designate how you label members. So if you think about it, if we look at member referencing global, we can say beams. So let's go into beams, and we can say beams are going to be labeled, and we want the member, the orientation, what grid line, so orientation and material. So I don't need material, so I'll just drag that off. I don't want orientation, I want grid line and level. Level's useful because it'll tell us whether it's mezzanine or what. And then we'll have an ID for the label, and we'll just say save and just say OK. So now when we add the member references for each member, you'll see that it is 1A, which is the grid line, level 2, and it's ID 458. Now we don't really need the IDs unless there are duplicates that are going to conflict, and I am going to turn around and in here, go back here and tell it under the ID only use when we have several that would be conflicting, and save and OK. So we can see that that's unique, that's not unique, so it needs, because there's two there, there's the bracing one and this, because they're both theoretically stopping on the same level. And it does cut down, that makes life easier to find things by using this, but we don't have to go for all these levels and IDs. We can just go for whatever you want, and you can have different ones for different materials. Is of use. I'm just going to turn off and say member number, so you're back to your normal member numbers. So that's another of the little tools that you have in the viewing. What else do you have? That's about it in the viewing until you get into the actual viewing of the objects. So you have the 3D here. If we look at the 3D, shows it and hides it, and vice versa. If we drop the list, we will see by material. So we're going to color by material. So the blue is the bracing members, the green is the steel, and the brown is the timber. If I turn that off, they're now all the same color. I could say by section size, so I can now see different sections in different colors. So I can see where this member here is suddenly a different size here to here to here, and you're wondering why. So you can go in, and likewise this one is different. So this is a frame that's been messed around with, so therefore it's not perfect. But you can see, they're all the same color, so that makes sense on those. So you can easily with colors identify things that don't make sense. You also then have the legend, which can get pretty hairy in a very complex structure. And you also then have the outlines, which is just an enhancing of the view, giving little, instead of just drawing the colors, it gives little borders to every single member to give you a bit more distinction between them. So if you look in here closely to the dark line here, I come back, turn that off, and it's just a color, flat color of the member. Obviously there's the shading and all involved. What else we've got in the viewing tools for general frame viewing is to show where your foundations are. They're sort of generic 1 meter square until you design them and do everything with them. But the more important one I find is something called draw short. And draw short shows you each individual member, and interestingly, this is shown as 3 members. Or 4 members, and really it should be 1 member, because going back on previous videos, we should be drawing physical members. So I'm just going to quick merge, and I'm going to merge between there, and that's now 1 member. That makes more sense from there to there. They're still connecting to the others, so from there to there is 1 member, and that all makes better sense. Likewise, if you get these, you can say from there to there. Now this is sort of truncated a wee bit. You're going to get to there, and then you're going to get to there until it's, but it shows you where all the connectivities are as well if you've done everything properly. If you'd done this properly in the first place, then we wouldn't have all these distinct breaks. But it's very, very useful to see what is a principal and primary member and what's a secondary member. So that's a quick run view of some of the different viewing tools for viewing your frames. Other little things you have is in the right hand side. You can say give me different font sizes so that everything, including the legend, which I'm just going to drop down. Oh no, that's for sorry. Is disappeared. What we can now do is we can say show me, for example, let's put the section sizes back on again, and they're all colossal in size. Well, really that's because they're 18 point. We should come down to about 11 or 10 point, something a bit more realistic on that. If you look at the saturation, that's to do with the colouring, and it's the hue of the colouring. Some people like a more bright, others like a more dull saturation. It's up to you. This one, not really applicable until we get back to wireframe. Wireframe, turn off the section sizes. In here we're still drawing in different colors. I personally prefer, when we're drawing wireframes, not the color by section, just to have plain black and white, plain black. But then we can turn around and say, well, rather than the single pixel lines all the time, let's draw them as thin or medium or even thick lines, so they come in as thicker lines and can be easier distinguished. Personally, I would always work just with the thinner wireframe. If you're in a big 4K screen, you may desire to work with thin or medium rather than wireframe. And then we have the node points, so we can identify where all the node points are. Interestingly, it always draws the node points at free ends, and it would draw a node point if there was a node on a member that was there for no reason whatsoever, like this one here. It's between two halves of a member and doing nothing else, so it shouldn't really be there. But we can just merge that member and get rid of it. But drawing node points can be very small. Again, we can look at medium and large points. We'll just close that back down in this case and turn it off. And finally, we have some filters. Now, some of them are to do with transparencies and lighting, and we'll look at those in more detail in later videos. And node points we've discussed about, and whether labels give grid references, and again whether we give references to combers. So I'm going to leave you with that. That's enough for this video. It gets you a very good view of the situation, allows you to manipulate, and if I wanted to quickly just review and create a view of this little walkway, I'm going to put it in the top view. It's this walkway over here. I'm going to come along and I am going to first of all filter it down. And then I'm going to flick it onto end view, and we can see where the little extra is coming from. So I'm now going to filter it again. And I'm going to be very careful here to not take the extra nodes. Whoops, sorry, just do an undo there. And back to 3D. So I was a wee bit extravagant and over the top. Just repeat that. So filter to there. put it in front view, and we can see that we've got a couple of extra nodes which we don't really need. So let's snap again and filter around that. Now we can put it into 3D, and what we can do is, if we don't want this upper level, is we can actually then decide to filter again down, so that it's really just the walkway part that we're interested in. And we can create a snapshot of that with settings such as let's play around, snapshot, 3D, bisection, sorry, by material, not by section, and I want them drawn short. We can see them all short except for the ones we fixed. And I'm now going to add that as a snapshot called Fred. So anytime I want to come back to it, I can just call up the snapshot, or I can create a viewing tool for that. So frame views, add one called Fred. The snapshot has more power because the snapshot has a lot of the information here, whether or not we were displaying section sizes or anything like that, whereas the frame view, which we'll see in a minute, is that. Okay. If I come back out to the full frame, turn off 3D, and I go to frame views and I go to Fred, it just gives me the wireframe. It doesn't do anything else, doesn't remember anything else, just other than the basic view, and that's very useful. Whereas, going back to full frame, if I went to snapshot, Fred, there it goes. And it's, if I was now to come along and say, right, on Fred I also want to know what are my section sizes, and I want all the members colored by material, section size. There we go. So they're all different colors. I have a legend. So I have the legend. I could then go to snapshot and I could go, whoops, cancel, and go edit snapshot, and I could say edit this one was Fred and update. And now if I close out of this, turning everything off, that was there, and 3D and all that, and I went to my, oh, let's close the legend, and we'll turn off the coloring. So if I now went back to my snapshot and went to Fred, it would remember the section sizes were being displayed, the key legend was being displayed, they're been drawn short, and they have their coloring all. So the snapshots is quite useful. It's quite an advanced little tool that you have as well as the normal. So that's it. Enjoy.